All right, we are recording. This is the C-Town podcast recording number 3. Take it away, your close-up, Brett.
Yeah, this is the C-Town Rivals podcast where each and every week, especially during football season, we get after it. News, notes, opinions, just a lot of good stuff. We love representing the city of Chandler, and as we've said, this is the time of year where it gets smaller and smaller. Teams are starting to get eliminated. One and done. Hey, let's get after it. And you know who's never one and done? Everybody you're about to meet. Ralph Amsden, he has been the founder of this podcast, and trust me, it's 13 years and it's not done. Adam Beadle to my right, first year, and I don't think he's done yet. And you know what? We bring in Coach Joe Bushman, the head coach of the Casteel Colts. And Coach, this is your first year, and Coach, you are not done. Welcome to the podcast, my man. It's just a pleasure to talk with you. How are you?
I'm good, guys. It's always an honor to be playing this late in the season. I remember someone telling me when I started coaching high school, if you make it to Thanksgiving, some things have went pretty well for you. So we're happy to be here. We feel like we're playing our best football right now.
Absolutely. And Coach, I know you don't have a lot of time, so we're just going to hit you with one quick question each. And Ralph, this is really your first time talking with Coach. I'll let you have first crack.
I'm just excited to be talking to a Portland Interscholastic League Hall of Famer. I peeped your old senior photo there. It's pretty nice. I just want to know the difference. One of my best friends in high school when I was a sophomore at Chandler moved down from Westland. Ended up being able to go back up and visit him, but there always seems to be people from the Pacific Northwest can find a home in the Southwest. People from the Southwest feel at home up there. What have been some of the biggest differences, and what have you enjoyed the most about your move down to Arizona?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've really enjoyed the people down here. I feel like it's a little bit of a throwback in that athletics and football at the high school level is a big deal, which is the way it should be. I feel like sometimes in Portland, for whatever reason, it kind of got minimalized at times. And so it's good to be back, I guess, in a community and in a state where, football is still important and people care. And so I guess that's one thing I've enjoyed. Obviously, I really like the weather. It's been great being warm most of the time, and it's good for me personally. It's good to be back in high school. I feel like I'm much more involved with the kids than I was just a year ago collegiately. As far as just being around them all the time, getting to do the things I really like to do, which is interact with the kids, try to bring out the best in them, build relationships with them, and then really get to coach football. So be careful what you ask for. I mean, I'm in it 24/7, it seems, but I love it. So I think those are, I guess, some of the things I've really enjoyed about being down here.
Coach, you have some preparations against the Lancers of South Point Catholic, first ever meeting between the schools. What are some of the challenges that you see that they do well? Because they've been traveling from Tucson week in and week out, winning on the road.
Yeah, I think that they're playing their best football they have of the season. Just looking at their films, it seems like they get better and better every week. I think defensively, they're really strong. It'll be one of the best, if not the best front we played against all year. They're just really stout in there. I think they're well coached. They play hard. It's going to be a challenge for us to move the ball and score points. And then offensively, they have some really talented receivers, a good running back, runs hard. They've had a change at quarterback, and it looks like their guys getting better every week. So I think we're going to have our hands full, but hopefully we can put together a good week of practice and compete.
Coach, always great talking to you. I want to ask you something. At the beginning of the season, you and I had a conversation about how one of the most important things for this team was going to be for some guys to step up as leaders. And obviously you've made it as far as you have. How have you seen, certain guys in your team take up those leadership roles, and especially a guy like T too, who's just had such a phenomenal year in only a short amount of time? How have you really seen him come alive and some other guys step up as well?
Yeah, I was telling our coaching staff just the other day that I feel like this last couple weeks we've just seen kind of the things we were hoping would happen all year kind of start to happen, as far as kids starting to hold each other accountable at a higher level, just more positive energy from our leadership crew. And it's making a difference. The kids are having a lot of fun right now, and that's, that part of it. I mean, part of it playing football is winning games, but you want to enjoy the ride too. And I think a lot of the leaders that we have are instrumental. It's taken a while for that to take off. I think that was frustrating for a majority of the season, but some of the kids have really bought in and are getting it. Kobe Oliveras and EJ Avila, they've just been the silent rocks on offense and defense all year. Bryce Greer, signing at Northern Arizona next week. He has really stepped up his game leadership-wise in the last few weeks. And then T, who's playing at a really high level. I mean, we always knew he had the physical tools, but now he's making better decisions. He's having every week we kind of grow together as a play caller and a quarterback, and so he's having a much better understanding of what we're trying to do and put us in good positions. But when you get to know T, he's really a fun-loving guy, and he just infuses enthusiasm and an energy in the team. So you can tell the guys are really rallying behind him, and they want to play hard for him just because he's so fun and he's so good to people.
Are you at all surprised by the way he's kind of just turned on in the last couple of weeks and really just got going?
I don't know if I'm surprised. It's kind of what I was hoping would be best case scenario. And now he's starting to fulfill that. I mean, he's got all the tools with his. I mean, he can make all the throws, and obviously he's an amazing athlete. But he's starting to make better decisions when things break down early. There are times where, instead of, making a bad play worse, he'd do it. But the last few weeks he's made good decisions, and sometimes he has to tuck and run it, or he has to throw it away, and he's done a better job managing the game.
Coach, what time is practice on Thursday?
First annual Thanksgiving Day practice at Casteel is at 8:30 a.m.
Good stuff. Very good stuff. Have a happy holiday, and I hope you have an even better Friday night. That's for sure.
You bet. Thanks for the opportunity, guys. I appreciate what you do for high school football.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Thank you, Coach.
Yes, indeed. That's Joe Bushman, the head coach of the Casteel Colts. And guys, wow, they are playing for a 6A title. Really cool, Ralph, just to see them a game away from Mountain America Stadium.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a program that experienced almost immediate success when they burst on the scene, won a 3A title, and quickly got moved up to 5A and got the biggest welcome to 5A I've ever seen in my life, having to go right up against a defending champion, Casteel,
Centennial.
First,
Yeah.
Centennial.
Mm-hmm.
Just Zidane Thomas and monstrous running backs and Tawee Walker, I think, was out there, and he's at Cincinnati now. So they stepped right into the fire, and then your conference games start to be Chandler Unified School District teams, and it's hard to grow at the pace that you were growing when the teams that you have to play are the elite of the elite. So the way that the playoffs are structured this year give them a really awesome opportunity to potentially play for a 6A championship, and to have gone from Gunnar Choi holding it down in the early part of the season to T. Smith in the second half of the season. We talked last week about the fact T. Smith had almost caught up to Higley as a team,
right,
in total touchdowns. And so, this is just an incredibly exciting opportunity for Casteel, and they got a decent shot too, which is exciting.
Absolutely. Let's drop down from the 6A to 3A, and we will start off with the Valley Christian Trojans. Another fine season by Jake Peterson's team, and it unfortunately ends in the 3A semifinals. Every other year, 21, 23, and 25, they roll into the semis and they come up short, 42-28 to the Round Valley Elks. Austin Shooter, he opened the scoring with a 65-yard touchdown run just a little bit more than a minute into the game. That game was played in a driving rainstorm. Next thing you know, it was 7-7, but the turning point, Brennan Brown, he is a big boy, defensive lineman, pick six, and that was all she wrote. And I tell you, Ralph, they have had a really good season. We'll talk a little bit more about the Elks, but Asher Hansel, he came to play. I had said on the broadcast that he's not going out like that. They were trailing late, and he got that touchdown just for good measure. And it was good to see, Ralph, him carry that family name and that hard-fought Valley Christian tradition.
Yeah, I could not be more proud of this team. I feel personally like they really reached their ceiling. This was not an overly senior heavy team.
Correct.
They were able to do so many things this year. We saw people evolve as passers and as runners, and we saw the defense absolutely dominate at times. You want to go out of a season knowing that you maximized what your potential is, and everybody kind of reached peak growth. And the thing about this Valley Christian team, and watching you call that game, was there was just no quit in them. This is a really, really good Round Valley team, and they force you into some terrible decisions. And when you make those decisions and you have to pay for them, the other team scores points. It's kind of easy to give up. And they didn't. They played right through the end of the game, which is the identity of this team. I know that there's players on this team whose siblings, relatives, friends in higher grades have experienced this same semifinal run. But can they say that they ran the gauntlet that Valley Christian did this year? With all of the playoff teams that they played, with the wins over Gilbert Christian, with going head to head with the number 1 and number 2 team. I don't think they can. I think this season kind of separates itself out as a little bit. You don't give bronze medals, but to me, this is the third best team in 3A in a year where you have two absolute monsters, and you went head to head with both of them. And
Yes,
I think
you
you
did.
can leave this season with your head held high.
Absolutely. Adam, game played in a driving rainstorm may or may not have negated some of that speed that we've talked about with Valley Christian, but in the end, those Crick boys were good.
Yeah, and I think it really just goes down to what we talked about last week in the physicality in this
Yes.
Round Valley team. We knew that they were going to bring a presence that Valley Christian isn't necessarily used to playing against.
That's right.
There's so many different teams in 3A that you're going to get a bunch of different looks, a bunch of different schemes, and really just a bunch of different type of athletes. And so I think that was kind of the defining factor in this one, was the fact that Round Valley was just, it seemed like they just came ready to play, and then they almost wanted it just a little bit more than Valley Christian did in this one. I think that was the game changer. But to kind of go back to what Ralph was talking about, just to see what this team accomplished this season, I think when we reflect and look at a lot of the good Valley Christian teams over the years, the teams that made it far, it's because we've talked about so many different players. And I think that's the case for this Valley Christian team. Austin Schroeder, you got to think earlier in the year, we were talking about Caleb Goldman, the defense, Noah Lewis, Hudson Pickett, right? There's Caden Palmquist, who still has a lot more years to come for Valley Christian, Asher Hansel, who caps off his senior season, right? So
Hammond came on towards the
Hammond
end
as well.
Yep.
I think that is why this Valley Christian team was so energetic and exciting, was because it's a lot like some of the Valley Christian teams we've seen in the past, where there's just so many different guys contributing on both sides of the ball, and that's what makes this Trojan team so fun to watch. So if I'm Jake Peterson, I think I'm absolutely, kind of patting myself on the back. Obviously, you didn't get to where you wanted to be at the end of the season, but I think when Valley Christian is going to look back at this year, I think going into the spring and just going into their offseason, they're really going to reflect on a lot of the good things they did this season. And I think this team is going to come a lot stronger out of this year into next year because of it.
That's a very fair take, and absolutely. Jake Peterson, again, thank you for allowing us access to your program. Up next, the Knights of Arizona College Prep. A great season comes to an end. Derek Zellner's team ends in the 5A quarterfinals, 38-20 to the Eagles of ALA Gilbert North. This is a team that lost to them not only once, but twice. The Eagles, they were strong. And Adam, I think it is fair to say that the better team did win this game.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Ty Detmer and the ALA Gilbert North team. That is one heck of a squad he's got going. I mean, they are
deep, strong.
I mean, we say the same thing about all these teams, right? Every one of these teams that's made it this far is really playing their best football in November. I think if you were to put these teams on a hierarchy, I would say that ALA Gilbert North is playing the best football they've played in years right now.
That's fair. That's fair.
In the month of November, and they are by far the strongest from a standpoint of they're healthy. They've got a lot of guys playing, and they're just what they're doing schematically is really good. And so I think when you look at this game, I think penalties hurt ACP just a little bit. It seemed like early on that was a bit of a struggle for the Knights, and then I think when you bring it down to the minute details, some of the things that you don't want to go wrong in this game went wrong for ACP, and I think that's really where they just kind of lost it, and we saw ALA Gilbert North come out as the better team.
Kind of ironic that they defeated Desert Mountain early in the season, but Desert Mountain is still playing.
Yeah, I mean, but that tells the tale of sort of the parity that is Arizona high school football. That just really, in any given week, something can happen. We could have an upset. Obviously, Desert Mountain took down the number one team last week, so that's just what makes this so fun. But at the same time, it also is kind of what makes it heartbreaking, is you see so many of these teams that are so great. There's great storylines. The way we talked about all year about Derek Zellner coming in, the buy-in from him in this program to be able to get these guys going, these seniors that are so, have taken on such big leadership roles, coming in and really making an impact and trying to drive their team. Evan Heinrich, I mean, we've said so many good things about Evan Heinrich all year. I hope that some college gives him an opportunity to potentially play at a high level, possibly low FCS. I really just think this kid is you try not to pay attention to the stats too much, but I think the stats speak for themselves and what this kid is able to do on Friday nights. And I think some team could really benefit from having him on their rosters on Saturdays.
Indeed. Stats and leadership. Ralph, 29 wins over the last 3 seasons under 3 different coaches.
That's incredible.
Yes. And before you get to your point, I'm going to say ACP Nation, or whatever you want to call it, don't make a coaching change. Do not make a coaching change. I mean, you've got a really good thing going, and hey, you had a great season. Keep Derek Zellner. Ralph, all you.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what he did with these seniors. Imagine what he could do to develop his system and everything over time. This was a kind of a rocky go of it for some of these seniors. But I think they learned some important lessons. They're going to have memories of 3 different coaches leading them, of a deep 5A playoff run, of a 4A championship game at Arizona State University. This is going to have been a very rich experience. And I think another lesson that they probably learned from this game against ALA Gilbert North is, sometimes when you want something so bad, everybody starts pressing. And when everybody wants it so bad, everyone's doing a little bit extra, which means somebody might not be in the right position. Other people are making business decisions, maybe being a little more aggressive than you would need for them to be. And I think that's an important life lesson to learn, because a lot of the people in this, I expect a lot of the ACP kids back involved with the Arizona high school football ecosystem. I mean, with the amount that they learned and everything that they went through, I can't wait, 10 years down the road when we have a lot of these guys just reinvested in what's going on with Arizona kids. And I do want to shout out some of the seniors who really showed up for this game. Evan Heinrich threw his last high school touchdown in this game. He had an incredible career. Adam Beadle talked at length about him, so I'll keep that short. Kyle Poole scored a touchdown. Max Sasso scored a touchdown with somebody that, we've been tracking on this podcast for a really long time. Ashton Sanchez, at times felt like as a receiver, he carried that team last year. And,
yes, he did.
And he gets his final touchdown of his high school career. They had a talented kicker this year. It made the last 2 kicks of his high school career in Hudson Fowler. And then on, defensively, incredibly aggressive defense and Whitell's 2 tackles for a loss. Noah Montoya and Cam Mitchell both contribute. Aiden Chapman all of these guys, Diego Bonilla forced a fumble. All of these seniors had such an incredible run. They're going to leave without a ring, but they're going to leave with maybe the most unique experience in Arizona high school football history of, 3 coaches, multiple levels of playoff runs.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty cool thing to have.
Out of state experience, they went to Indiana last year, and then, as you said,
right.
culminated in Sun Devil Mountain America Stadium last year. So no, that's a great point, Ralph. Just their experience over that course of time was just very unique and very enriched. So yes, props to Derek Zellner and the ACP Knights. The Perry Pumas, their season ends at 6-6 once again as they exit at the hands of neighboring ALA Queen Creek. The Patriots defeat them 21-13, and this seemed to be a defensive battle, and Bobby Nesbitt certainly had a solid game for the Patriots, that's for sure. But Ralph, if you told me that the Pumas would pick off ALA Queen Creek 3 times, sophomore Cody Lalama, 3 interceptions, I would have said, all right, hey, cool, Perry's moving on. But unfortunately, that was not the case.
Yeah, it was a lot like this Monday night football game. The Panthers and 49ers keep giving the ball back to each other. Ironically, former Perry Puma involved in that in Brock Purdy. And so,
True.
you once you get those opportunities, you want to be able to try to make something of them. And Perry was just having trouble turning the ball over themselves. I think that not really sure what to say here. This is a team that has a ton of talent coming back, and this is fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm.
This is fingers crossed, because when you're a Chandler Unified School District school, and 8 feet to your left is Campo Verde, and 8 feet to your right is Basha, and you got kids that used to be in a Chandler High School District, the boundaries change, that are going to Perry, and everything's sandwiched in. Sometimes you get to kind of looking around of like, well, maybe if we're only winning 1 playoff game every year, there's some other opportunity for me elsewhere. But I hope these boys look around the room at what's coming back or what could come back. Another year of Cale Snyder and Amos Augustine could be truly, truly special. I know that they weren't able to really run the ball as effectively as they wanted to this year, but they got kids coming up. They got Talon Frazier hopefully returning. There's some good kids that are moving on, like Ricky Stewart and Wendell Schaefer and others. But this is a team that has a real opportunity, I think, to be special on the offensive side of the ball next year in growing together. And so my hope right now for them is just to get away from football a little bit, have a good Thanksgiving meal with your family, and then get into your other sports, spread it around, and start thinking about what this group can accomplish together next year.
Adam, something I want to see out of Perry, and I don't really care who it is, another dude, another stud has to step up. We all talk about Cale Snyder, but I want it to be Cale Snyder and whomever. I think that's the recipe, whether it's Augustine, who, I don't know if he puts on another 10 pounds, 15. He's not slender necessarily, but all of a sudden he's a beast. They got to have 2 guys, because for the most part, coming into this year, yes, we knew it was Snyder. And okay, hey, let's see who else. They've got talent, as Ralph said, that's for sure, coming back. Somebody's got to emerge into that kind of D1 prospect, I think, in order for Perry to get over that hump.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to Ralph's point about this Perry team, is that it's going to be so important for this Perry team just to continue to grow and develop. And I think that's really the biggest thing for them over the course of this offseason with the guys they have coming back. I know they have a couple players in the lower levels that have really stepped up and made some noise. And I think you look at the way Perry developed players, even look back to this offseason. Cale Snyder put on 15 to 20 pounds before the start of the year.
He looked totally different when we saw him in May.
And so I think that it's not, for Perry, it's not really changing anything about what they're doing. It's just kind of continuing to grow and hope to build success, enhance their players. And I think really, when you look at it, I'm looking back at their schedule, right? At the beginning of the year, Perry won the games we said they were going to win, and they lost the games. I think probably we would have said they probably would have lost, but they played most of those close, right? I think Brophy, they were hanging in that one.
Yes,
Chandler, I think, they were close for a little bit, and then Chandler kind of ran away. Basha obviously is its own, category, and then Mesa as well. You're playing two completely different Mesa teams than we thought was going to be there at the start of the year. So that's really what it comes down to, and I don't think that Perry needs necessarily another, a new stud to come on their roster and step up, but really it's just about who on your team right now can continue to grow, develop, step into those roles, and I think they have a couple of players that can do so. Talon Frazier, I think, is going to be the biggest one for me, just looking at him, seeing how much he grows this offseason will make a difference next year, and I think just, if there's one thing I'm looking at from a schematic standpoint and looking upon to build, it's that run game. I think Perry has really got to develop ways to unlock that this season, and Talon Frazier could absolutely be a vital piece of that.
Yes, indeed. I mean, we definitely are pulling for the Pumas to kind of get over that hump. And indeed, yes, just the enhancement, the growth, everything about the Pumas we want to see succeed. And we were talking briefly about Brophy. You had mentioned just that schedule. I'm thinking about it. I saw Devin Fitzgerald, and we'll get into the the Chandler game. I saw Devin Fitzgerald twice this year, once against Hamilton and once against Chandler. 28 receptions for 488 yards and 7 touchdowns. Yeah. That's ridiculous. That is just...
I mean, he's going to be one special prospect.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
that's crazy from a numbers standpoint. It really is.
Do you want to hear his... So this is kind of crazy. Devin Fitzgerald's final game was 253 yards receiving, which is the school record. 4 touchdowns
and 14 receptions.
4 touchdowns, tied the school record. 14 touchdowns, career high, tied the school record. Career stats, he's second all-time for yards, second all-time for touchdowns, and tied school record for career receptions.
And that basically mirrored the Hamilton game.
Right, right. And so I know this is a Chandler School podcast, but I think you got to give credit to what Devin Fitzgerald did this season, and it was great.
No, it was nothing short of an amazing performance. But we'll slide over to the Basha Bears. For the 4th straight season, they're going to the Open semifinals. Chris McDonald's team eliminates Williamsfield 33-10. They're playing really well. They have not allowed a second half point in each of their last 2 games. Noah Roberts finally gets untracked. His first 100 rushing yard game since November 8th. Of last year. So yes, indeed, 128 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. Ralph, that's a recipe for a winner. Strong running game and the defense.
There was a lot of hype and going into the season about Basha, about their running backs. And one thing that people need to understand is prospect hype and like somebody actually being a very productive high school football player, they don't always go hand in hand. We've had 4 or 5 stars from the state of Arizona that aren't actually impacting the game at the high school level in the way that they will eventually impact the game at the college level. Prospect rankings are projections. Like, finding somebody who's going to be really, really, really good eventually. Every once in a while, though, you get a crossover between guys who get those high ratings, which lead to offers, saying that college coaches want to come and invest in developing you and having you on campus for a few years, and people who can absolutely kill it against, their high school competition. To start this year, there's some back and forth on, who's running the ball, Gaines and Roberts, and they're both extremely talented. And then at the end of the season, you look back and you say, wait a minute, no, Roberts has all these offers. He's only getting 57 yards per game. Well, a couple of things about that. Number one, he's definitely not the player he's going to be yet. He's an incredibly unique physical talent. And at the same time, this is still a kid who averaged 7 yards every time he touched the ball.
True.
So, and he was a menace in as a receiver. Most of the damage he did this year up until this last game actually came as a receiver. So over 500 yards as a running back catching passes out of the backfield. And so it is good in those moments, especially the biggest moments when everybody's watching and a trip to the open semifinals is on the line, that you remind people like, oh no, like all of this hype is absolutely for a reason. And, I'm sure that Liberty has their hands full when they're watching that film.
Absolutely. Adam, you've seen Basha's body of work. They've defeated the Blackhawks twice now. That's great, but they do indeed, as Ralph just mentioned, Liberty, a whole different animal. What do they need to do to advance? Because this Lions team seems to have the Bears number.
I think you got to keep giving it to Noah Roberts. I really think that's the key. And I say that because I think it's going to be a lot easier, like it seems like it has been so far in this playoffs, for Basha to run the ball with him. I think when you look back to the beginning of the year, especially that first Williams Field game, Basha wasn't, Williams Field gave Basha sort of the toughest challenge early on when it came to running the ball in that first half. Basha just could not move it downfield. Noah Roberts couldn't find any lanes. Even Coach McDonald was like, we're still trying to get him going. We're still trying to figure it out. And I think the bonus of Basha being able to play Williams for a second time is they were able to game plan, okay, we've seen this team. We know they're going to play against us and try to stop the run. How do we counter that? And I think they did just that. They drew up an excellent offensive game plan. Were able to get Roberts moving down the field. And the big thing here is, if you remember, Basha and Liberty played against each other before the start of the season. They scrimmaged against each other. So they've got film on one another, and they know what each other's going to bring.
Sure.
They know how to stop the run, how to make the run move. Liberty in the same way is going to be able to go, okay, we know how much they've passed the ball this year. How are we going to be able to shut down the pass? The questionable thing, what quarterback is going to be in the backfield for Basha? I've heard a lot of talk this week that Brody Veers could potentially play this week for the Basha Bears against Liberty. If not, you still got Jake Rogers, who has been a very prolific passer for Basha going in this game. So when I look at this matchup as a whole, I look at two teams that are, one, going to be able to prepare for almost every scenario they could get thrown at them, and also two teams one of which could potentially, sort of outshine the other and really run up the scoreboard. I think this is going to be a really fun, close, and competitive football game. I think we're talking about two of the best offensive-minded head coaches in the state of Arizona, who know how to draw up one heck of a game plan and know how to win close games. And I think that's exactly what this is going to be. I think it's going to be a close one, but I really do think it's going to come down to if Basha is going to be able to get Noah Roberts the ball moving and have another 100-yard plus game.
I think if he gets that 100 yards, that is that's a big plus for Basha. Ralph, how do you see this one shaking out? It's actually been since week 1 of the 2015 season. That's the last time the Bears beat these Lions.
Well, I do have questions, and that maybe Adam will be able to answer them for me. Dante Bruley. When I was watching clips, and I also saw Chris Eaton was out there, Gridiron Arizona. He was covering this game. He posted that Bruley was making an impact on this game, and actually got a sack to help end a Williams Field drive. When I go to the stats, I don't see him listed for this game. I don't see any stats for him going back to November 6th. So what I'm curious about is he full go? Is he good to, is he healthy? Because that's a type of thing like, are we not uploading everybody's stats for competitive advantage? We see that happen in the playoffs constantly.
Yep.
We'll have all of a sudden a team that was super diligent on entering stats to get a leg up just won't put the playoff stuff in, so you don't really know who's doing what, but you can figure it out from watching film. So, who knows? Who knows why people do this? But to me, one of the big keys to this game, Dante Bruley, 6'2", 230, has been a ridiculous impact player all season long, and Liberty has such a unique offensive system where, really the only way to disrupt it is to find a way to make their quarterback uncomfortable. They had the advantage for 3 years of having a quarterback that you could not make uncomfortable, Navi Brazone. That's not the case this year. They're a little bit more human back there, but still incredibly talented.
Yeah.
So to me, it's, if Dante Bruley's a full go and you can make the opposing quarterback uncomfortable, and they have plenty of good pass rushers, But he to me is the key. He's a senior. He's been there since through the Demond years.
Yep.
This is somebody who matters a great deal. If he's full go and he's making an impact, I think they actually have a shot in this game. To me, he's so important that if that's not the case, and if he's not available, or Chris Eaton mistook somebody else for him, when he was tweeting out the stats, then you're in trouble a little bit. So Liberty hadn't lost a home game or in-state game in years with an S, So I like Basha. I'm going to back the C-Town boys in this one, but to me it really comes down to the availability of the pass rushers like Dante Bruley to make this Liberty offense just get off its game a little bit, because man, they score in bunches and they are aggressive. They're supremely well coached and they've beat you before. So you got to be full strength in this one.
I think that this has the potential to be one of the toughest defensive battles we've seen all year, and I say that because I still believe that Liberty has probably the best defensive line in the state of Arizona. You got Pat St. John, Tyler Bernstein, TJ Fuliafutu, and these are just all physical dudes that will get in the backfield. And we saw how much Bash's offensive line without DeJon Yarborough struggled against Hamilton.
Very true.
And Derek
very
LeBlanc was a monster in that backfield. So I think it comes down to how much will your tackles stay up, how much will your tackles pick it up. Obviously, they've had some injuries too. They've had to have some guys step up, but Jake Hildebrand's kind of been that keystone for that line this season. That's really been able to have a great game every single week and really protect his quarterback. So I think also that's what it comes down to, is how well can not only Basha run the ball, but also protect the quarterback as well.
And that game will be played Saturday, 6 o'clock over at Corona del Sol High School, home of the Aztecs. Two more teams we got to talk about, as indeed the Arizona Avenue boys, Adam, the Hamilton Huskies, your alma mater. They're able to defeat the Toros of Mountain View 35-27 to get back to the Open semifinals. Quarterback Daniel, how do you pronounce his last name?
I think it's Veda.
All right, there we go. Daniel Veda. He's QB1 now. He continues to connect with Roy Oliver 12 times in this one for 145 yards and a score. No other receiver caught more than one pass. The running game, you got to love it. Both Jacob Brown, Skylar Cole, both over 100 yards. Second straight game they've done that. Adam, this offense continues to score points. I believe that is 90 over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think we've talked so much about, different players from a skill position standpoint on Hamilton's team, but I think we really need to give credit to what might be the best offensive line in the state at Hamilton. The way they've been able to allow their running backs, two running backs to have 100 yards in one game, and obviously the way they kind of just never went away in that Chandler game.
Yep.
This is a Hamilton offensive line for what really feels like the first time in a couple of years where they've been sort of fully healthy the
dominant
entire
ones, yes.
year. And that necessarily hasn't always been the case for Hamilton. So for them to be this late into the season with the guys that they have on that line still on full strike, and it feels like those guys are also getting better every single week, that's huge for the Huskies, especially when you're down your starting quarterback. I think Daniel Veda did a really good job at being able to make the plays he did in this game against Mountain View. I think when you look at this game defensively for Hamilton, I think we've really undermined how great of a quarterback Brady Goodman is. I mean, I was fairly impressed watching back some of that film and just seeing the plays that Brady Goodman made. I think he's going to be a fantastic quarterback at Utah State. He's just one athletic playmaker. But for Hamilton, you got to continue to run the ball. You got to run the ball. They executed against Chandler, and I think that'll be the big question. I know we'll talk about the game as a whole in a bit, but for their offensive line continuing to play great is really what's going to matter these next couple of weeks.
And Ralph, what's been good is they've been down, but they've come back. Well, obviously, they were down against Chandler at the end of the season, and they were trailing to Mountain View, but this offense, they're just so poised no matter who's doing it. They can score at will.
Yeah, imagine two comeback wins in your first two ever high school football games, trying to manage the number one team in the state. Like, it's like getting the keys to a Ferrari in the middle of a race and coming back and winning, and then having to do it all over again the next week. The one thing I want to say about this game is and I want to make sure that it's not lost on people, that we got one of the coolest crossover moments of Talon Arnett versus Roy Oliver. And so, Talon Arnett set the record for single season touchdowns in 6A, and he did it last year. Roy Oliver beat that this year. What Roy Oliver is chasing now is the career 6A record, and obviously he's got years to do it. And he's going to set it. But in that game, Talon Arnett, scores 3 times on the field with Roy Oliver, and before the torch gets passed, Talon Arnett got to go out there and show everybody, like, hey, don't forget about me. I was here too. And for his final game to be on the field with the receiver that's going to take that baton and run as far away with it as anybody can possibly do it, that was an incredible moment and a heroic effort from Mountain View these last couple of weeks. We unanimously picked against them to even end up in this game against Hamilton, and then having a second half lead in this game. They deserve to be commended. But the truth of the matter is, this Hamilton team, they are very, very good, potentially top 3 in the state at running the ball. The drop off in quarterback play, it still has your sophomore receiver producing at an all-state level. Defensively, they absolutely wreak havoc, and they finally had a game where the defense got put in pressure situations and came through 1 week after, or 2 weeks after they had to do that in the battle for Arizona Avenue. This is an extremely dangerous, well-coached team that some people might think that it looks like they're running out of gas, but I think they're learning the type of lessons that could produce a champion here late in the season.
And the biggest thing for this Hamilton defense now?
They got the Jandro boys back.
They got both the Jandro boys
back. Yes.
out on the field, and that's dangerous.
Great. It is dangerous. Dangerous like the Chandler Wolves offense. They have scored 9 in 9 straight quarters. First time I was at a home game all year, and it was really good energy. It was just good to get back with the Wolves family, I'll say again. I mean, all of our teams are our family, which is great, but you get to Chandler, and they continue to just do their thing. I mean, I'll say defensively, they did what they had to do, leading Brophy 21-0 at the half, but then the Devin Fitzgerald show took over, as we mentioned earlier. Final was 45-34. 2 things jumped out at me. Will Menzel, he's a beast and a half. I mean, we could talk about his numbers all day, but I think the big thing that I saw in this one, guys, was David Douglas stepping up. He's a sophomore, just like Chase Ochoa, and it was just really good to see what they're doing. And Adam, when you have Ochoa and Douglas clicking, along with a plethora of receivers, that doesn't bode well for the opposition.
No, and I think the big thing about this Chandler team is they've, the last couple of weeks, they've really found a way to run the ball. They had 264 yards total on the ground in this game between 3 players. Obviously, Will Menzel was the leading rusher with 16 carries, 146 yards. Dave Douglas as well, like you said, 14 carries, 82 yards, 5.9 yards a carry. I mean, that's pretty big when you get that kind of production out of 2 of your backs. Will Menzel averaging 9.1 a carry.
I was going to say, you mix that with the quarterback. That's big.
That'll win you a football game about 85% of the time. That'll win you a football game when you've got more than one back averaging more than 5 yards a carry. So good to see Chandler in this production. I think that the one thing that sticks out to me about Chandler is how many points their defense has allowed in the last couple of weeks. I think early on in the season, I get it. Maybe not as strong of opponents. It's a little bit easier to stop the offense, and by the time you get to the end of the game, you've got second team guys on both teams that are coming in. It's just the ball isn't moving as well
in the last 2 weeks.
But we're talking about 89 combined points in the last 2 weeks, and even the week before that against Pinnacle, a bit of a scare there, letting them get into the game early on. Chandler had to come back. So I think the biggest thing for Chandler's defense here late is you got to come out on the field. I think you got to get some stops early. They did that against Hamilton. They got stops. They just weren't able to sustain it throughout the entire game. So you got to get stops early, and then once you do, you have the lead. You've got the upper hand. You need to be able to sustain the rest of the game, and I think that's the key for Chandler here.
That works. Ralph, your thoughts on what we can see on Saturday night?
Well, I think more of the same. The evolution of this Chandler team is that Will Menzel is putting more and more on his shoulders and on his legs. He has 13 combined touchdowns in the last 3 weeks, and more than half of them are rushing touchdowns. He almost doubled his career high in rushing yards this last week against Brophy. He wants it. He wants it bad. There's something to be said for not doing too much and going with the flow offensively. But if you can make the difference and you have the athletic talent and
he
protect
does
yourself, then get it done by all means. After Hamilton beat Chandler, I did hear a lot of people say that was Chandler's best shot, and it doesn't matter what happens from here. I didn't believe that. I think that the first 27 minutes of that game matters. It happened. It's not that Hamilton's vulnerable; it's that Chandler can do this, and they certainly have the talent. Jai Jones is, he's up there. He's one of the most talented players we have in the state.
Yeah.
And, when the Ochoas contribute, when you get a stop or two, Kamari on defense, good Lord.
Kamari Crawford, yeah. And they're used. So many
special.
guys are stepping up. That's the thing. It's a lot of guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that you've seen Will Menzel really try to take games over. I think that, passing against Hamilton was probably his roughest game of the year, even though he still had some big plays. I think he's going to maybe rely on his feet a little bit more to keep the defense honest.
As we wrap it up, I'll tell you my key points to the game. I only got two, and then Adam and then Ralph, you wrap it up. The time of possession that Chandler had against Brophy was dead even. It's a matter of 6 seconds. I think it was 24:03 to whatever the math is, 23:57. I think the Wolves have to win the time of possession in order to capture this one. That's my big takeaway with that. And then on the other side, if Roy Oliver gets multiple scores, I'm not even talking, say, just two, I think it bodes well for the Huskies. So those are my two things. I get the honor of calling the game with Jason Jewell, who has seen both teams. He's seen every team in the state. If you look at that Brophy schedule, it's nothing short of ridiculous and tough. But those are the two big things on either side.
Yeah, I think for Hamilton, you got to go into this game knowing, that Chandler probably understands that you're going to try to run the ball a lot. I think that's where Hamilton's going to have to maybe take advantage, is knowing the fact that Chandler thinks they're going to run the ball and come into it and say, okay, how can we open up the pass game and get Roy Oliver multiple scores? I like that. I think that's a big key, but also, like I said, running the ball is going to be huge for Hamilton, even though I think Chandler's probably going to be expecting it a little bit. And if I'm Chandler, Will Menzel, I think, has just got to continue to play great, continue to do what he's done all season long, and defense also. If you can come out and get a few stops early and sustain that success throughout the rest of the game, we talked about it. Kamari Crawford had that 96-yard pick six. We thought that was going to be the dagger.
Sure.
And here comes Hamilton. They come marching back. So even though their defense is scoring points, they need to prevent points from being scored, especially late in the game. So I think the key for both teams, for Hamilton, it's opening up the passing game, and for Chandler, it's getting some early stops.
Ralph, take us home.
Well, for Chandler, there's nothing to celebrate if you don't win. I always say those try-hard 15-yard penalties aren't so bad, but when you're celebrating like you've done something, you haven't. So celebrate when the game's over if you have the opportunity to. And maybe 16, 17 penalties isn't it? Try to keep that around 8 or 9. You're not going to take the Chandler football out of Chandler football, but overexcited, celebrating too early, all that type of stuff. When they came back on you, I hope that that's a lesson that they learned. I would say for Chandler and Hamilton, all you want to do is survive the big plays, because there's going to be fireworks in this game. Nothing you can do to stop it. Keep your head on straight. And meanwhile, on the other side for Basha, it's limit them. You just let your opponent rush for almost 275 yards, but guess what? Not a single one of those runs was more than 15 yards. So for Basha, keep everything in front of you, and for Hamilton and Chandler, hold on tight.
6:00 p.m. Dobson High School. It will be the Chandler Wolves and the Hamilton Huskies. And Seatown Rivals has done it again, but more so PodWorks Studio has done it again. Definitely want to thank Bill Brasso and the studio for hosting us. It has been just a fantastic time. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks back here at this studio. Something Adam and I like to do. We like to high five. We get to do it in person. Ralph, at some point we will high five you in person. But Bill Brasso, thank you so much. My name is Brett Quintyne. He's Adam Beadle. He's Ralph Amsden. We'll see you around on the Seatown Rivals podcast.
All clear.
Awesome.